Hello, welcome to the channel, Miracles of History. And don't forget to leave your like. St. John Mary Vianney, the Holy of Ars. In a small village in France. At the beginning of the 19th century, a humble priest would forever change the way the world viewed the Catholic priesthood. His name was John Mary Vianney, but he became known to all as the of Ars. Without great intellectual formation, and facing enormous difficulties in his studies, he would become the patron saint of parish priests, a beacon of holiness, simplicity, and total surrender to God. In this video, we are going to dive into the life of this great saint of the Church, whose story continues to inspire generations of faithful and priests. Birth and early years. John Mary Baptiste Vianney was born on May 8, 1786. In Dardilly, a small village near Lyon, France. He was the fourth of 6 children of a deeply Christian peasant family. From an early age, John showed a strong inclination for piety and prayer. Even though he was an ordinary boy, with his difficulties and weaknesses, he loved to attend Mass and already demonstrated a profound love for Jesus and Mary. John's childhood was marked by difficult times. The French Revolution had forbidden public worship, and many priests celebrated Mass in secret. Vianney grew up witnessing the courage of persecuted Catholics and the zeal of clandestine priests. This planted in his heart the desire to also become a priest. Struggles in studies and vocation. Despite his clear vocation, John faced great intellectual difficulties. He struggled immensely with Latin, the language of theology and liturgy at that time. He was rejected by several seminaries. Many said he was too good to be a layman, but too weak to be a priest. Yet, he never gave up. With the help of devout teachers and influential friends, he was ordained a priest in 1815, at the age of 29, after more than 10 years of interrupted studies. For many, he seemed like a mediocre priest, but God saw beyond. Shortly after, he was sent to the parish of Ars, a tiny and spiritually decadent village in rural France. His superiors placed him there almost to hide him. But it was precisely in Ars that he would become a giant of faith. The of Ars, and the transformation of Ars. When John Mary arrived in Ars in 1818, the village had about 230 inhabitants, most of them indifferent to the faith. The people rarely attended Mass, and many were given over to drinking and worldly living. The young priest, fragile in appearance and moving in simplicity, decided to convert the people through prayer, penance, and example. Every day, he spent long hours in prayer before the Blessed Sacrament. He fasted constantly and slept very little. He preached strongly against sin and invited everyone to conversion, but he never judged anyone. On the contrary, he offered his own life as a sacrifice for the souls of his parishioners. Little by little, the people of Ars began to change. The church, once empty, became filled. People returned to confession and participation in the Eucharist. Miracles began to occur. Sudden conversions, healings, family reconciliations. In just a few years, Ars was transformed into a true center of spirituality. The confessor of souls, the most impressive gift of St. John Mary Vianney, was his ministry of confession. He had an extraordinary charism for penetrating people's hearts. Without knowing the sinners, he could state their sins with precision, leading many to tears and conversion. Over time, the lines for confession with him became immense. People came from all over France, and even from other countries. In certain periods, the saint spent 16 to 18 hours a day in the confessional, listening to confessions, advising, consoling, and freeing souls. His motto was clear: the good God is quicker to forgive than a mother is to snatch her child from the fire. The of Ars had a profoundly merciful vision of God. He believed that no sin was greater than God's love, and therefore urged everyone to turn to confession and the Eucharist. Life of penance and holiness. Vianney lived a life of extreme austerity. He ate little, sometimes only a boiled potato a day, slept on a straw mattress, and constantly fasted and kept vigils. All of this he offered for the souls of his parishioners and for the sinners of the world. His prayer was constant. He meditated for hours before the tabernacle and used to say, "He is there, waiting for you. Speak to him, he listens with love." He also had great devotion to the Virgin Mary and to Saint Philomena, to whom he attributed many miracles. He even built a chapel dedicated to her and spread her devotion throughout France. Despite his growing fame, Vianney remained humble and detached. He refused honors and wanted only to save souls. He even tried to flee Ars several times, considering himself unworthy, but always returned out of obedience. Spiritual battles. The of Ars also faced harsh spiritual struggles. He suffered frequent attacks from the devil, who tormented him at night with noises, screams, and broken objects. On one occasion, the devil even set fire to his bed. Vianney would say, "The dog does not bite his bone. He growls because I am taking souls away from him." These combats made him suffer, but also strengthened his faith and perseverance. He saw in these trials a participation in the sufferings of Christ. He never victimized himself. On the contrary, he prayed more and offered everything for the salvation of souls. Final years in death. Already old and very weakened by penances, Vianney continued to hear confessions, celebrate Mass, and pray fervently. Even when sick, he never abandoned his priestly mission. In his final days, thousands of faithful came just to see him and ask for his blessing. On August 4, 1859, at the age of 73, St. John Mary Vianney gave his soul to God. His death caused national commotion. More than 6,000 people attended his funeral. Many miracles were reported at his tomb. He was beatified in 1905 and canonized in 1925 by Pope Pius XI, who proclaimed him the patron saint of parish priests. In 2009, Pope Benedict XVI declared a year for priests in his honor, reaffirming, "He is a perennial model of a priest who gives himself completely out of love for Christ and for souls." Memorable quotes from the Avars. "The priest is the love of the heart of Jesus. Prayer is the elevation of the soul to God. Sinners are the most beloved of God. Our faith is like a lamp. The more oil of prayer, the brighter it shines. Leave a parish 20 years without a priest, and men will worship animals." Legacy and relevance today. The life of the UHRs remains profoundly relevant. In times of crisis of faith and scarcity of priestly vocations, his figure shines as a beacon of hope and holiness. He shows that it is not human talents or academic titles that define a good priest, but intimacy with God, love for souls, and the desire to serve. St. John Mary Vianney reminds us that prayer is the fuel of spiritual life. The confessional is a place of healing and mercy. The priest is called to be another Christ. Holiness is accessible to the humble and simple. His life is a response to materialism and superficiality. He teaches that God works through the small, the poor in spirit, the faithful in daily life. Relics and popular devotion. The body of St. John Mary Vianney remains incorrupt, preserved in the Basilica of Ars, France, where it is visited by thousands of pilgrims each year. His relics have traveled the world, including Brazil, where devotion grows among priests, seminarians, and the faithful. In many dioceses, he is celebrated with novenas, vigils, and Eucharistic adoration. It is common for priests to confess and celebrate Mass on this day as a way of renewing their vocational commitment. Conclusion: St. John Mary Vianney is one of the greatest saints of the Church, not for spectacular miracles or grand deeds, but for his total fidelity to God in the simple and ordinary things. He lived the radicality of the gospel, offered his life for souls, and transformed the world around him with the power of prayer, love, and example. In a time when many seek meaning and authenticity, the life of the Avars is an invitation to seek holiness in daily life, to trust in God's mercy, and to make life a gift for others. St. John Mary Vianney, pray for us. If you felt touched by this inspiring story, be sure to share this video with someone who needs to know about St. John Mary Vianney. Turn on the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and leave your like. We'll see each other in the next video with more inspiring stories like this.